was painful to hit that record button. Because...
Tell them why.
I have no idea what we're going to say about this fucking movie. We're doing this is our review on Alien vs. Predator, which came out in 2004. Now, this is technically the third film in the Predator series, if you would count this as even being canon.
Yeah.
And, it's debatable whether or not this is canon. Now, if you count this as being part of the Alien series, that means this is also technically the fifth Alien movie, because this came out after Resurrection. Yep. The movie is kind of a prequel to Alien, though, because Alien takes place, years and years in the future, and this is set in present time. And once again, whether or not this is really a prequel to Alien kind of depends on whether or not you count this as being canon. However, the movie Prometheus, which many people consider to be the official prequel to Alien, that kind of contradicts the idea of this being canon. Would you say that, or...
Not necessarily, because I feel like, well, maybe story-wise, possibly, but if you do consider it canon, I think it's fine. I don't think it breaks continuity, because technically, in the continuity of the plot lines for each movie, basically, these would take place even before Prometheus, because this is basically set in modern day.
Yeah, and Prometheus was still set in the future too.
Both this one, Alien vs. Predator, and the sequel to this one, Alien vs. Predator, Requiem. Technically, these would be both considered prequels to Prometheus in the, continuity timeline of these movie franchises, you know?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, there is actually a comic book series that I think actually kind of connects Alien vs. Predator to Prometheus. I think it's called Fire and Stone, but apparently it does kind of try to bridge the gap between Alien vs. Predator and Prometheus. I still haven't read those comics, so I can't really comment on them too much.
Make them into a movie.
Yeah, why not? They should make them into a movie. God knows we need a good Alien vs. Predator movie.
Yeah.
Now the film is it's actually written and directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, who directed the Resident Evil movies, he directed Mortal Kombat, and he's directed a bunch of other movies. Honestly, the only movie of his I've actually really, really liked was the movie Event Horizon, which... You said you didn't see that yet?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, it's actually a really good movie, Event Horizon, and it's probably his only really, really good movie.
Yeah.
Now, saying that, though, despite this movie's reputation, I don't think the film's that bad. It's not a good movie, but I find my biggest problem with this movie is I think it's mediocre. It's just very, very mediocre. And that's my biggest problem. And honestly, the characters in the movie are very forgettable. Aside from Lance Henriksen's character, only because it's fucking Lance Henriksen, and he's awesome. And the main girl...
The protagonist.
Yeah, the main girl in the movie, she's pretty good. But other than that, all the other characters are so freaking forgettable.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And, there's some terrible CGI effects in this movie. And then there's those weird slow-mo shots that just really...
That basically are taken right from a Matrix movie.
Yeah, and it just doesn't look good. It looks so freaking cheesy,
and for me, that's my biggest problem with this movie. In our previous reviews, how we talked about kind of how the previous two Predator movies, and even have you reviewed the Alien movies yet?
I've reviewed the Alien movies already. I reviewed them actually last year in October.
Gotcha. Well, I wasn't here for that, but I think...
Actually, no, you did, you reviewed Resurrection with me.
Yeah, right. That's right, I do remember that. Check that out. But, my biggest problem with this movie, and going back to what I was saying, I think both the Predator and Alien movie series as a whole I think a common thing that they really do well is a blend of like suspense and horror elements with action
And sci-fi.
and sci-fi. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this movie is strictly an action movie, and for me, that's its biggest sin, because you kind of need those horror elements and suspense elements, and
Yeah.
we were even talking about while we were watching. Well, I was going crazy about the editing, because the editing made me feel like I was watching, something like Man of Steel, where the editing is jumbled all over the place,
Yeah.
and it's like actually it would probably fit more of like Batman Begins, minus the shaky cam. This was maybe like the start of it before they started adding the shaky cam, which makes it even worse. Come on, guys. but here it was minus the shaky cam stuff. It was just strictly extreme close up, quick cuts, bang 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 bang, and just you have no sense of like the environment. Like have some movies, like let's take Die Hard for an example.
Yeah.
You pretty much know the entire Nakatomi building layout of the setting, of the building at the end of the movie. You know where each location is and everything. This is one of those movies. I find that bad in movies when you don't really have a good sense of the environment, and this movie is another one of those kinds of examples, because just the layout and the environment and the way it's shot, it just doesn't make sense to me. It just bothers me. It bothers me when directors don't have a good sense of direction.
Yeah.
Not like direction of where to go, but like direction of the setting.
Now, the plot of Alien vs. Predator is, it's set in 2004, so it's set, like, probably, I want to say, like, I don't know how long in the future the first Alien movie is supposed to take place, but it's set, obviously, years and years before Alien, and set probably a couple of years after Predator 2, if you count, once again, if you count it as being canon.
Right.
But basically, it follows, this, one of the main characters of the movie is a character named Charles Bishop Wayland, who's played by Lance Henriksen in the movie, and he's supposed to be like an ancestor of the guy who designed the Bishop robot, who you see who that is in Alien 3, and like basically the character of Bishop from Aliens is supposed to be, like, based on...
He's supposed to be Weyland-Yutani, basically.
Yeah, well, he's the guy who started the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, which is... Essentially, they're, like, the main villains of the Alien series, aside from the aliens.
They want, science and to develop the aliens into a weapon.
Yeah, in the Alien movies, they do. In this, like... Honestly, he's not a bad character, but, like, in this, you realize this is the guy who will...
It's for science purposes, basically.
But this is the guy who created the corporation that will become the evil corporation that you see in the Alien movies. And I do like how they're trying to make this canon with the other ones. The fact that you have, they mention Wayland, and the fact that it's Lance Henriksen playing this guy, like... I do like that little callback to Aliens.
It's appreciative that they are trying to make it work, but it just kind of falls flat.
Yeah, but I do kind of like, there was a nice little reference to Bishop where the scene where Lance Henriksen's character in this movie is at his computer, and then you see him do that little thing with the pen, which is an obvious reference to the knife thing, sorry, I'm messing up my words. The knife thing from Aliens. Yeah. Which I like that, but basically the plot of the movie is his corporation, their satellite, catches these, like, signals. They basically discover that there's a pyramid under the ice in Antarctica. So basically in the movie, an expedition team goes to this pyramid in Antarctica, and basically, when they get there, essentially they awaken the aliens, or the xenomorphs, and then the predators show up, and in the movie you find out that, like, thousands of years ago, essentially in this movie you get the idea that the predators are essentially the reason humans became civilized. Like, they taught humans how to build, and humans essentially worship them as gods, and essentially the Predators brought the xenomorphs to Earth, and were using, thousands of years ago, they used the xenomorphs as, like, or they used humans as incubators for the xenomorphs, is what you find out, and long story short, when these people enter this pyramid, they awaken the xenomorphs, and then the Predators show up, and essentially there's a battle between the Predators and the xenomorphs, and the human characters get caught up in between, and that's the basic plot line.
It's basically like a hunting game that the Predators do, with the humans being the, like you said, the sacrificial incubators. They kind of built, the humans kind of built like a religion around the Predators, and the Predators use the humans to release aliens. That's kind of like a hunting game to kind of prove their up-and-coming warriors, I guess, to the higher-ups that they're worthy to do whatever the warrior Predators do. That's basically the whole point of it.
And in the movie, the Predators themselves are almost more like anti-heroes in the story, and really the xenomorphs are the villains.
Yeah.
Because, like, even at the end, the main character, she teams up with the last Predator, and, like, you know, like, which I thought was interesting, but they did the same kind of thing in Predators, which came out after this, obviously, but I think Predators did it a million times better.
I think so, too, but I still find it weird. To me, personally, I find it weird because I see the Predator's character as kind of like, you know, very, very proud of their, you know, of their race and all that kind of stuff. I feel like they wouldn't necessarily want help. They're kind of loners when it comes to fighting and stuff.
The way I saw it is that character, she kind of proved herself to the Predator, and even, like, in Predator 2 at the end when the one Predator throws the gun to Harrigan and says, "Take it," it's showing that because he beat one of their guys, they respect him, and, like, I think the Predators, when they see a human is worthy enough, they'll build respect for that human. So I can kind of see... like, her teaming up with the Predator to try to fight the xenomorphs and all that.
I can see it kind of like teaming up, but, like, the way Alien vs. Predator does it, it's kind of like a team up, like a buddy team up type of thing, and that's what I didn't like about it.
It's not done very well in the movie.
Like, I feel like it would be something more like, you know, the Predator's hiding in the shadows, and maybe the Predator's, like, using her as bait or something.
Okay.
But he trusts her enough that she's not going to get herself killed type of thing. I feel like you could have done it a little bit differently, I thought, instead of making it kind of like a buddy, you know, buddy type of thing. You know, it's just weird to me.
But overall, I would say it's a very mediocre film. Like, I don't hate the film, I really don't, but I find it to be forgettable and mediocre, and honestly, we both rewatched the movie to refresh my memory, because it's been a couple of years since I've seen it. But honestly, after watching it again, I know by the time I'm done recording this, probably by tomorrow, I would have forgotten most of this movie.
Yeah, that's the disappointing thing about it, because I feel like it's just one of those movies that has a lot of potential in concept-wise.
Oh, definitely.
My premise, I've had this premise for the longest time. I joke about him with it all the time, but basically my premise for Predator versus Alien is basically take Judgment Day from Terminator, replace Skynet and all the machines, and throw in the Alien and Predator war, and humans are just basically just trying to survive as this war is going on.
Basically like a post-apocalyptic movie that has aliens and predators
fighting. Yes.
That would be cool, actually. I can see that.
Yeah. That would be my premise.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I think they can do a good Alien versus Predator movie. They just need to... they just need to give it to a director who really respects the material, and also, I feel like... Now, I don't mean this to be insulting to Paul W.S. Anderson, but... Or what I should be saying is, I think he tried to make a good movie.
Yeah.
I think a lot of this might have been studio interference, honestly.
Yeah, probably. But it's just that it's kind of hard to do, really. I feel like they went with this action adventure movie style with this movie because that was a popular thing at the time. Like action adventure was was big during the 2000s.
Yeah, like this was only a few years after they did the Tomb Raider movie and all that.
Like that was a popular thing.
Which I can definitely see the influence of that on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the studio has to realize that sometimes you got to pull those elements out because it just doesn't work. In my opinion, Aliens and Predators is beyond a simple action adventure film, and that's what this is. This is like a mediocre action adventure movie, and the Predator and Alien are so much more. They're much more three-dimensional in concept.
Yeah,
with the horror and suspense and sci-fi elements.
Now, we should point out that before this movie even came out, there were already Alien vs. Predator comic books and Alien vs. Predator video games. So even before this came out, the idea of aliens and predators together, that was not a new thing. Like, even in Predator 2, you had the scene where Henriksen sees the xenomorph skull in that trophy case and, like, showing that, like, in the Predator universe, xenomorphs exist. So, essentially, you're supposed to believe that the Predator movies and the Alien movies are, like, in the same universe.
Connected in some way. It's just, I don't know if this is the way you connect it.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
I've only read a few of the Alien vs. Predator comics. I've read one where Superman and Batman fight the aliens and the Predators. Like, I've read that. But, I mean, once again, could have been good. I just think maybe it was the fact that Paul W.S. Anderson might not be the best director in the world, coupled with the fact that there probably was a lot of studio interference.
Yeah, he's a very hit-and-miss director, and, probably a lot of studio stuff, because they were probably typical studios, probably going with the trendy thing of, we gotta make an action adventure, that's it. It's quick cuts, gotta make it quick.
Yeah.
Don't let it be boring.
And we should also point out that this movie came out a year after Freddy vs. Jason, and Freddy vs. Jason was a pretty big hit when it came out, and I almost feel like this movie might have been trying to cash in on the success of Freddy vs. Jason. And you know what's funny is this movie, I would say, is probably better than Freddy vs. Jason, only because the characters in this movie, while they're forgettable, didn't annoy me like they did in Freddy vs. Jason. At the same time, I would watch Freddy vs. Jason 1,000,000 times before I watched this.
I would agree with that.
Because Freddy vs. Jason, for me, is like the ultimate guilty pleasure movie. Like, I love and hate that movie at the same time.
I can't hate it.
Yeah.
Like, I was actually kind of surprised because when I first watched that movie, when I first watched Freddy vs. Jason, the one scene when they're in the police station, I think it was, and the girl scares
Laurie.
What's her name? Yeah, scares Laurie with the spoilers. With Freddy's claw hands through her face.
Yeah.
That scared the shit out of me, and I didn't see it coming. First time watching it, it made me jump.
Didn't really scare me, but that might have been because when I first saw that, I had already seen the original Nightmare on Elm Street, which...
Yeah, but the thing is, I was going in with this expectation of... Because everything leading up to it, too, was just strictly generic action movie, so I wasn't expecting really any horror elements, and that was a pretty good horror element. Yeah. I was really surprised. I was like, oh, they actually did something pretty cool.
But enough about Freddy vs. Jason. I know. This is an Alien versus
That's a review
Predator.
for another day, but yeah.
Well, I already reviewed that, so it's too late. We can't do it, man.
Maybe a revisit, possibly.
But yeah, Alien vs. Predator, it's a mediocre film. I don't think it's a terrible movie, I just think it's mediocre. And that's just my opinion.
I don't know if I should recommend it or not. I lean toward I don't recommend it, because it's like... The first freaking, just setting everything up is so boring.
I don't think it was that boring.
It was boring.
Okay.
And, there's just some stuff that's just dumb, in my opinion, too. I didn't really like the location either, having this random pyramid that just so happened to take place on Antarctica. without it actually having like some.
To be fair, I actually do want to point out that might have been taken. There's an old H.P. Lovecraft novella called At the Mountains of Madness, which actually has some similar ideas to this, so it almost seems like this movie might have been taken a little bit from that H.P. Lovecraft story.
Because I kind of wish they explained that like Antarctica was once, because that's the thing about Antarctica. It used to be a continent, but then it froze over, right?
Yeah.
Like I was kind of hoping they would allude to something like that, where it's vaguely referenced because of the backstory behind it, but not really.
Mm-hmm.
Where it was habited at one point, and they built this pyramid. All 4 tribes were together at one point, and they built this pyramid to worship the predators. I wish they kind of expanded on that a little bit more, because that was really the most interesting part of it, and it was just there to me. It just felt like it was there for backstory, rather than actually adding something interesting to the mythos.
Okay.
And that plus the action, just strictly action adventure. It's like, come on, There's more to it than just that. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, it's yeah.
The action parts are good, somewhat.
And I don't know, the slow-mo shots really are annoying as hell.
It's very hit or miss. I don't recommend it.
I will say some of the practical effects in the movie are actually pretty good.
If you're a hardcore fan, you may find some enjoyment out of it, but I don't know.
I don't know, I think if you are a hardcore fan, you might really hate this one, because it kind of shits on both franchises in a lot of ways. I would say if you're a completionist, like, if you're somebody who, if you're a fan of a franchise and you have to see every film in that franchise, check this out.
Give it a shot and try not to die. Try not to,
shoot yourself, because,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we said everything we need to say about this. Our next movie review, what will be the sequel to this movie, Alien vs. Predator Requiem, so stay tuned.
The better one. It's the better one.
I still have to rewatch it, so we'll find out in that review. But yeah, stay tuned for that review, and bye.